Hi, good morning, and welcome to this ZP FoodSense webinar. So we like to do this once a week, and it's really just answering questions that have come in from the FoodSense users during the week. My apologies for any kind of bandwidth issues or sound issues. I'm doing this from a hotel, so hopefully that hotel is going to have good enough internet connection. That said, let me go forward with the slides and just say, FoodSense, we're primarily focused today on the testing of capsaicin in chilies and chili products. Today we'll be talking about chili powders. Don't forget, there's a live streaming webinar on the 27th of March, so you can basically see this in action on the 27th of March. The links will be put underneath the video, so you can watch the video later on, and that will give you a kind of a live demonstration. There's two webinars on the day, one in the morning and one in the afternoon. The one in the morning is intended really to cover sort of one part of the globe's time zones, and the one in the afternoon is intended to cover other parts of other time zones, let's say. That said, let me go forward a little bit faster and just say, FoodSense Generation 4 is a technology that kind of comes with chili sensors. It also has ginger sensors. It also has what's called total antioxidative capacity. We have the meter itself. If you see the video running alongside these little illustrations, you can see the FoodSense there and just get a sense of the scale. FoodSense is driven by a smartphone app. Admittedly, I don't have the QR codes in this presentation, but there is a app available on the Google Store and also the Apple App Store, and you can install the app on your phone. The app will connect with a meter, and the app also connects with a cloud system called Julie. This is significant, this Julie part, because we'll talk in a minute about that. Everyone who's a FoodSense user has personalized or has a personal online training. There's weekly webinars and there's monthly webinars, and it's the cloud system that really helps with the training and with the support, I should say. So the sensor works with a meter. The sample goes onto the sensor, and the meter is told what to do by the app. And the meter sends the data back to the app, and the app sends the data up to our Julie cloud. And then you get a result there and then on your phone. So there's so you will just get a simple result which says Scoville heat units, and you're 90% happy. Now what it then does then is also sends the data to the cloud. So if you've got any questions or any concerns, not only is the result saved, but the result and the raw data is saved. And this is this transparency part, because we understand that the alternatives to using FoodSense for measuring the hotness of chili products is to either go out for HPLC testing, high pressure liquid chromatography or high performance liquid chromatography, or it's in fact just tasting, and tasting is subjective, so I'm not going to answer questions about subjective tasting. I'm an analytical scientist, is one of my hats, and so I can talk about objective testing where there's actually data available. The point is we save the data, and that really helps us then in the cloud, and because it's in the cloud, it means that we can come in and take a look at people's data and help advise them, and that's this part here then that we can actually advise people about the data. Right, so let me go forward a little bit more, and it's also got what's called an API, an application programming interface, which means that we can plug into modern laboratory information management systems. So we support clients by personal online training, we support clients by weekly webinars, and so we support clients with monthly webinars as well. So there's a monthly webinar on the 27th of March, but it's worth saying that there's a monthly webinar, I want to say every month as well. Every month as well. It's one on 20. Yeah, there's even if you're watching this video much later, you'll find that there is actually a webinar regarding this. So what happens is you have a sample. The sample's put onto the sensor. The sensor reads the sample, and the result is essentially displayed on the phone. And then the result also goes up to Julie, our cloud, and Julie stores the data up in the cloud, and you get the results, and there's also a long-term storage, and the data is basically behind your username and password, so we don't have to see it. In this case, we're dealing with something called bed ghee chili powder. It's got a certain expectation. I want to say that this work was done in collaboration with our Indian distributors, Technando. So Technando distributes us in India. As you can appreciate, there's a lot of sort of chili products and chili product development going on in India. Now, bed ghee powder is a little bit unusual. That we've got the raw signals from these chili powders, and so it's kind of we have an expectation of what we're going to get, but we also then find out that this powder is kind of slightly unusual. And I'll talk about that unusualness in a minute. That we have a chili powder, but bed ghee powder is containing some sort of a lot of oil on it. I don't know if this is because it's realistically this oil is it's not being properly kind of taken off with sort of the dehydration of this chili powder, or the oil is just so non-volatile that it's sticking to the chili powder. But the chili powder in this bed ghee chilies is actually quite the powder. It may be kind of quite microscopic, this oil, but it seems to be definitely there. And so when we put the sample onto the sensor, the oil is also depositing onto the sensor as well, and it actually it sort of layers the sensor and helps to distort the signal. And also the oil is there in the sample, so actually the chili, which is quite an organic molecule, is quite happily remaining within the oil. So bed ghee chili powder seems to be quite an unusual powder because it's quite mild, and along with that sort of mildness, by mild, you can have a capsaicin powder. Capsaicin powders can be, I know it's got a reputation for 2.2 million, but typically you might get a capsaicin powder that's between 1 and 1.8 million. You'll get other powders then that are more like sort of 150,000, but bed ghee chili powder is quite unusual that it's actually down in the 12,000, which is really mild for a chili powder. But it's not only mild, but it's also oily as well. And so this combination means that we actually have to have, when we saw this with the client, we were able to support the client because we were able to advise them to do what we call a 1 in 10 dilution. Let me just take some water. We were able to advise them to do what's called a 1 in 10 dilution. And even then, we were looking at their signal. We thought, well, this is really quite a, I don't want to use the word weak, but, it was really not a very intense signal. But we did come up with a new way of extracting the signal from the background signal, let's say. And we were able to do that quite well. And we were able to sort of test them at 11,000, 9,000, and 14,000, which gave us an average of about 12,000 Scoville heat units. And they were quite happy because they were kind of having this expectation that this chili powder was between 8 and 12,000. They've got a certificate of analysis, probably by HPLC, that it was 12,212. So when you're looking at two numbers and they're both close to 12,000, there's no statistical difference between that. So if you're interested in using the ZP, it's probably worth knowing that, if we run into a problem because of this cloud technology capability, it does mean that we can actually step in and take a look at people's data and really help them sort this out. So come to the live webinar. It is on the 27th of March. I'll put a link underneath the video. If you're watching this in April, don't worry, there's always one at the end of April. There's also one at the end of May, etc. So we always do one at the end of the month. And if you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out to us. Okay, thanks very much. Or it's in fact just tasting. And tasting is subjective, so I'm not going to answer questions about subjective tasting. I will, I'm an analytical scientist, is one of my hats, and so I can talk about objective testing where there's actually data available. The point is we save the data, and that really helps us then in the cloud. Because it's in the cloud, it means that we can come in and take a look at people's data